Brace yourself. Can it pass up anytime now? Collect yourself. Does it ever be the same in this sad, sad world? Walk around a lot a bit, trying to make the pieces fit to a puzzle with a million missing pieces. When I'm feeling fine is when I discover that I'm afraid to blow my cover, and there's something very wrong with this. So sit back in your hole.
Look at this, Maria Camilla bringing me coffee. Now that's, yeah.
Ew. His machine pees it out slowly and loudly. And then he
Enjoy your bean flesh.
So good morning, everybody. Good to be with you today. The next piece of literature we're diving into is called the Alexander Romance. This is an account of the life of Alexander the Great, the famed world conqueror. Didn't conquer the whole world, but conquered the largest empire the world had ever seen up till that point, and absolutely shaped the world that we live in to this day. It was Alexander's conquests that brought the ideas and culture of Greece, tiny little place, so small. People who took my humanities class like 4 years ago have been hearing me say this for 4 years. So small you can barely see it on a map of Greece, and transformed Greek ideas, Greek culture, in a very real way into the ideas and culture of everybody. The ideas and culture of the world were brought not by the brilliant artists and philosophers themselves, but were brought by the great warrior. There is no doubt that the real man, Alexander III of Macedon, who lived from 356 to 323 BC, was an extraordinary man with extraordinary talent and extraordinary accomplishments. But that man, the man who lived for those 32 years, the man that if you study Alexander today, if you study him in my classical studies course or in any other class you take, or just in your own quest for learning, the man who we can carefully reconstruct from historical evidence the way modern historians do history, that man is an important but only one ingredient in the figure of Alexander the Great, who has become world famous. That figure, Alexander the Great, who has become world famous, is a literary figure, of whom the historical figure is the major component. But the way Alexander's story was told grew through orature and literature almost immediately. The core of the story we're reading now comes from Egypt, and it comes from within decades of the man's life. And yet, as we move forward through the story, you'll see, even if you're not an expert in Alexander the Great, the historical Alexander, you'll see that the story grows through orature. It also grows through intentional crafting of fiction, literary fiction. The story spreads throughout the world, and different cultures tell the story in different ways. What we're looking at is sort of a compilation of the different versions of the Alexander Romance, growing out of the original Egyptian version. But the Alexander that everyone has meant when they said Alexander the Great, until modern, strictly disciplined, evidence-based history started being done a few hundred years ago, is this one. The literary creation that we will encounter in the Alexander Romance. So let us dive in. In our opinion, Alexander, the king of the Macedonians, was the best and most noble of men, for he did everything in his own way, finding that his foresight always worked in harness with his virtues. When he made war against a people, the time he spent in his campaigns was not sufficient for those who wished to research the affairs of the cities. We are going now to speak of the deeds of Alexander, of the virtues of his body and his spirit, and of his good fortune and action and his bravery. And we will begin with his family and his paternity. Many say that he was the son of King Philip, but they are deceivers. This is untrue. He was not Philip's son, but the wisest of the Egyptians say that he was the son of Pharaoh Nectanebo II, after the latter had fallen from his royal state. This Nectanebo was skilled in the art of magic, and by its use overcame all peoples, and thus lived in peace. If ever a hostile power came against him, he did not prepare armies, nor build engines of war, nor construct transport wagons. He did not trouble his officers with military exercises, but took a bowl and carried out a divination by water. He filled the bowl with spring water, and with his hands molded ships and men of wax, and placed them in the bowl. Then he robed himself in the priestly robes of a prophet, and took an ebony staff in his hand. Standing erect, are you going to giggle, Miles? Standing erect, he called on the so-called gods of spells, and the airy spirits, and the demons below the earth. And by the spell, the wax figures came to life. Then he sank the ships in the bowl, and straightway, as they sank, so the ships of the enemy which were coming against him perished. All this came about because of the man's great experience in the magic art, and thus his kingdom continued in peace. After some time had gone by, there came men on reconnaissance, whom the Romans called exploratores, and the Greeks kataskopoi, and they informed Nectanebo of a black cloud of war, a force of innumerable armed men advancing on Egypt. Nectanebo's Egyptian general, named Eli, and Tyler, you might as well, you're the Pharaoh too, right?
Yeah. I'm cooked.
You keep that out of your ear. Nectanebo's general came and said to him,
O king, live forever. Put aside now all the ways of peace and prepare yourself for the maneuvers of war. For a great storm cloud of barbarians is threatening us. It is not one people that advances against us. That's a horde of 10,000s. Those who are coming against us are the Indians.
See, it's always the Indians. You're right, Alec. It's always the Indians.
The Nosiamines, the Oxydor, say, K.
Just nobody else in here knows either, so you just power through.
Invariants.
Most of them are fake, too, by the way.
The Invariants,
Those
the
are the
Kuchinos, the Lilopades, the Bospore, the Bastranoi, the Asanians, and the Chalybes, and all the other great people of East. And their massed army of countless armed men is advancing on Egypt. Set all else aside and consider your position.
So this is what the general said to Nectanebo, but the king laughed at him and said,
Ahaha, I'm the Pharaoh. You have spoken well and fittingly for one whom our protection has been entrusted, but you speak like a coward and not like a soldier. Strength does not lie in numbers, but the issue of war depends on zeal. One lion may overcome many deer, and one wolf may shear many flocks of sheep. Go with the soldiers who are under your command and get ready for battle. But I, with a single word, shall overwhelm this huge horde of barbarians in the sea.
And so saying, Nectanebo sent the general away. You'll be back. You'll be back later. Nectanebo stood up and went into his palace. And when he was alone, he made all his usual preparations and gazed into the bowl. There he saw the gods of Egypt steering the ships of the barbarians, and the armies under the command of the same gods. Nectanebo, being a man experienced in magic and accustomed to talk with his gods, realized that the end of the Egyptian kingdom was at hand. He filled his garments with gold and shaved his hair and beard. Thus transformed in appearance, he fled to Pelusium. From there he sailed away to Pella in Macedonia, and settled there as an Egyptian prophet, and foretold to many people events that were hidden in the stars. Meanwhile, the Egyptians asked their so-called gods what had become of the king of Egypt, since all of Egypt had been overrun by the barbarians. And the self-styled god in the sanctuary of Serapeum, so Serapeum is a temple to the god Serapis, the self-styled god in the sanctuary of Serapeum spoke an oracle to them.
This king who has fled will return to Egypt, not as an old man, but as a youth, and he will overcome our enemies, the Persians.
They asked one another what the meaning of the saying might be, but finding no answer, they wrote down the oracle that had been given to them on the pedestal of the statue of Nectanebo. Thank you, Serapis. Nectanebo soon became a familiar figure to everyone in Macedonia. King Philip happened to be childless by his wife Olympias, and as he was going to be away at war for a long time, King Philip and Olympias. King Philip? What do you need, Manny? No. King Philip happened to be childless by his wife Olympias, and as he was going to be away at war for a long time, he called her to him and said,
Take note of this. If you do not bear me a son after I return from the war, you shall never know my embrace again.
Wow, you need business. Where are we, Miles?
When
Maybe
the-
lose my place.
when
When
the
the day ended, Philip went off to war with his entire army. One of Olympia's servants, okay, go to war, Philip. One of Olympia's servants, realizing why her mistress was so sad, said to her, Lady, I have something to tell you. I will say it if you do not hold it against me.
Speak. I shall not hold it against you. If it is what I want to hear, I shall certainly owe you my thanks.
There is in the city a man from Egypt who is able to fulfill everything that the soul desires, if you will only allow him to see you. Olympias did not hesitate, but sent for him right away and ordered him to come in to her. When Nectanebo saw her, he began to lust after her beauty. He held out his hand and said,
Greetings, Queen of the Macedonians.
Greetings to you too, most excellent of prophets. Come in and sit down. You are the Egyptian teacher, in whom those who have tried you have found nothing but truth. I too was persuaded by you. What art of prophecy do you use to foretell the truth?
There are many and diverse methods of prophecy, O Queen. One may interpret horoscopes, or signs, or dreams. One may utter oracles from the belly, or prophecy from the fleece of a lamb. And there are casters of nativities and the so-called magi, who are masters of prophecy.
So saying, he gave Olympias a sharp look.
Look sharply. Prophet, have you turned the stone as you look at me?
Yes, madam, for I remembered an oracle given to me by my own gods. You must prophesy to a queen, and see, it has come true. So tell me what you wish.
Then he placed his hand in a fold of his garment and took out an extraordinary little writing tablet constructed from gold, ivory, ebony, and silver, and engraved with 3 zones. On the first circle were the 36 decans, on the second the 12 signs of the zodiac, and on the inner one the sun and moon. He put it on a chair. Then he opened a small ivory box, revealing the 7 stars and the ascendant made of 8 precious stones, which lit up the pictured miniature heaven. The sun was of crystal, the moon of diamond, the Mars of hematite, the Mercury of emerald, the Jupiter of airstone, the Venus of sapphire, the Saturn of ophite, and the pointer of white marble. Olympias was full of wonder at the precious object. She ordered everyone to go away, sat down beside him, and said,
Prophet, cast a nativity for myself and Philip.
So, quick explanatory note here. Nativity, that's a word that means birth. If you're thinking Navidad, that's the same, that's the same term. So this here is specifically a birth spell. There was a rumor going around that if Philip returned from war, he would reject her and marry another. Nectanebo said to her,
Put down the hour of your birth. Put down that of Philip.
What else did Nectanebo do? He placed his own nativity next to that of Olympias. Then he made some calculations and said to her,
The rumor which you have heard concerning you is no lie. I, as an Egyptian prophet, can help you to avoid rejection by Philip.
How can you do that?
You must have intercourse with an incarnate god, become pregnant by him and bear his son and bring him up. He will be your avenger for the wrongs Philip has done to you.
Who is the god?
Ammon of Libya.
It's like literally not you. That's the whole point, is that it's not you, Philip.
What form does this god take?
He is a man of middle age, with hair and beard of gold and horns growing from his forehead. These also made of gold. You must make yourself ready for him as befits a queen. This very day you will see this god come to you in a dream.
If I see this dream, I shall reverence you not as a magician, but as a god.
So, Nectanebo left the queen's chamber and collected from a desert place certain herbs, which he knew to be reliable in dream divination. He made an infusion with them, then molded a female figure out of wax, and wrote on it the name of Olympias. He lit torches and sprinkled on them the infusion of herbs, and called with the appropriate oaths on the demons whose function this is, to bring an apparition to Olympias. That very night she had a vision of herself being embraced by the god Ammon. As he rose to leave her, he said to her, "Woman, in your womb you now carry a male child who will avenge you." When Olympias awoke, she was amazed. She sent for Nectanebo and said to him,
I had a dream and saw the god Ammon who you spoke of. I beg you, prophet, make him make love to me again, and be sure to let me know in advance when he is coming, so that I may be better prepared for the bridegroom.
First of all, lady, that was a dream you saw. When he comes to you again, he will require something of you. But if your highness commands it, give me a room where I can sleep, so that I can make prayers to him on your behalf.
Very well, you may make your resting place in my apartments. Then, if I become pregnant by the god, I will give you the great honors that a queen can. Shall treat you as if you were the father of that child.
You must know that the following sign will be given before the god enters your room. If, as you rest in the evening in your chamber, you see a serpent creeping towards you, order everyone to go outside, but do not put out the lamps, which I have prepared to give proper honor to the god, and which I will light and give you. No, go to your bed and make yourself ready. Cover your face and do not look directly at the god whom you saw come to you in your dream.
So saying, Nectanebo went away. The next day, Olympias gave him a bedroom immediately adjoining hers. Nectanebo, meanwhile, procured a fleece of softest sheep's wool, with the horns still attached to the temples. The horns shone like gold. He also procured an ebony scepter, a white robe, and a cloak resembling a serpent's skin. Wearing these, it's super tricky, super sneaky here. Wearing these, he entered the bedroom where Olympias was lying under the coverlet, just peeping out. She saw him come in, but was not afraid, because he looked just as the god had done in her dream. The lamps were lit, and Olympias covered her face. Nectanebo, putting aside his scepter, climbed on the bed and made love to her. Then he said,
Be calm, woman. In your womb you carry a male child who will avenge you and become the king and ruler of all the world.
Then he left the room, taking the scepter with him, and hid all the pieces of his disguise. The next morning, when Olympias awoke, she went into the room where Nectanebo was sleeping and roused him. You keep leaving and then coming back the next sentence. Yeah, sorry.
Greetings, your majesty. What news have you for me?
I'm amazed that you do not already know about our prophet, but will the god come to me again, for it is very sweet with him.
Listen, your majesty. I am the prophet of this god. If you will give me this place where I may sleep undisturbed, so that I can make the appropriate spells for him, then he will come to you.
You may have this room from now on.
She gave orders that he should be given the key to the room. Then he hid his disguise in a secret place, and went into her as often as Olympias wanted. And all the time she thought it was the god Ammon who came to her. Day by day Olympias' belly grew, until one day she said to Nectanebo,
What shall I say if Philip comes home and finds me pregnant?
Have no fear, queen. Ammon will come to your aid in the following way. He will appear to Philip in a dream and relate to him all that has occurred, so that Philip will not be able to make any accusations against you.
In this way, Olympias was taken in by the magic powers of Nectanebo. Then Nectanebo took a sea hawk and cast a spell on it. He instructed it in all the things he wished to tell Philip, and when it was fully prepared by his black arts, sent it off to fly to Philip. The sea hawk came by night to the place where Philip was and spoke to him in a dream. When Philip saw the hawk speaking to him, he woke up in great disturbance of mind. At once, let's enter Philip here. You two background for a minute. At once he sent for a certain Babylonian dream interpreter who had a good reputation and described the apparition.
I saw in a dream some god of great physical beauty with gray hair and a gray beard. He had horns on his temples, which looked as if they were gold, and in his hand he held a scepter. I saw him go into my wife, Olympias by night, and lie down with her and make love to her. Then the god stood up and said, Woman, you have conceived a male child who will make you fruitful and will avenge the death of his father. Then I saw myself sewing up her body with papyrus fibers and sealing it with my own ring. The ring was of gold with a stone in it, and on the stone were engraved the sun, a lion's head, and a spear. While I watched this, I seemed to see a sea hawk standing beside me, who roused me from sleep with the beating of his wings. Tell me, what does this signify?
Long live King Philip! What you saw in the dream is true. The sealing up of the body of your wife is a reliable sign that she is pregnant. For no one seals up an empty vessel, but only one that has something in it. As for your sewing her up with papyrus, well, papyrus grows nowhere but in Egypt. The seed then is of Egyptian origin, and not humble, but glorious and of great fame, as the gold ring indicates. For what is more glorious than gold, with which we make our honors to the gods? And the seal portraying the sun, the lion's head, and the spear shows that the child will fight against all peoples like a lion, and make their cities captive, even as far as the place where the sun rises. The god whom you saw with ram horns and gray hair is the Libyan god Ammon.
Such was the dream interpreter's answer, but Philip was not pleased when he heard it. Now, at this point, we're not reading the whole thing all together. There's a scene that somebody hit the moon button on the TV for me, please. One of the scenes that I cut out by special request of Eli, I'm gonna put back in here. So here we do have a deleted scene. After Philip left the dream interpreter, an Egyptian general came upon the dream interpreter and beat her with that sword. And she died. Should I just move on? And the god Serapis came in trying to save the dream interpreter. And the Egyptian general beat the god Serapis with the sword, and the god Serapis was knocked down, didn't die because he's a god. Now, this particular deleted scene, I'm not going to swear to you that it was actually in the original Egyptian version, but I thought we would insert it. Thank you, Serapis, dream interpreter, Egyptian general. Now, if we could please take this seriously, ladies and gentlemen. As Olympias, so Philip to the, Olympias come forth, Nectanebo in the background. Olympias, for her part, was in a state of great anxiety because she had no confidence in Nectanebo and his arrangements concerning Philip. So she has no confidence in Nectanebo, but she's been sleeping with him this whole time because she's falling for it when he dresses up as the god. So one of the things that's going on here, it's an interesting way that the Egyptians behind this story are splitting the difference. In Alexander's own lifetime, the rumor spread that Alexander was the son of Zeus, that Zeus had laid with Olympias in the form of a serpent. Egyptians tended to, and then later the Greeks that conquered Egypt tended to associate Zeus with the god Ammon. So there's already that tradition. The writer here is saying, all right, no, he's not Philip's kid, but it wasn't really a god either. The Nectanebo has real magic powers, but they only go so far. He used his magic not to make Alexander a miracle child, but just to make Alexander. Oh, spoiler. You guys got that the baby was going to be Alexander, right? You guys got that? Okay. All right. So nobody tell him there are no spoilers in this class. You'll find out when we get there. It might be Santa. It might be Santa. Now, if we could please take this seriously. Miles! When Philip came back, we know where we are, we're on the paragraph 9, or section 9. When Philip came back from the war, he saw the disturbed state his wife was in and asked her,
Wife, why are you so disturbed about what has happened? The sin was another's, as was made clear to me in a dream, so you cannot be faulted. The kings are all powerful in respect of everyone, but not in respect of the gods. It was no common man who was your lover, but one of those far superior in comeliness to us.
So saying, Philip put Olympias' mind at rest. She was full of gratitude to the prophet, who had informed Philip of all that had happened. Some days later, Philip said to Olympias,
10, oh yeah.
Some days later.
You were deceiving me, wife. You were not ravished by a god, but by some other. You may be sure he will not escape me.
Nectanebo took due note. That is not the face. So Philip's real, all right, and that's what he looked like, and that is not the face of a man you want to mess with. Not the face at all of a man you want to mess with. Soon there was the dude, not Angelina Jolie, the dude. So we'll have a surprise mystery. Oh, that was page 1. Okay. Could we please take this seriously? So there was a great feast in the palace, and everyone was celebrating with Philip, the king's return. Only King Philip was cast down because of his wife's pregnancy. Suddenly, as will happen, Nectanebo turned himself into a serpent, larger than the previous one, and crept into the dining room, hissing in a most fearsome way. That is creepy. You are creepy. So that the very... You want to think a really big snake is, listen here. So that the foundations of the palace shook. That's how big a snake. When those who were dining with the king saw the serpent, they leapt from their places in fright. But Olympias, who recognized her special lover, extended her right hand to him. The serpent raised himself up and placed his head on her lap. He then, did you just go, I'll kick your ass if you do that? He then coiled himself up and lay on her knees, popping his forked tongue in and out to kiss her, which the onlookers took as an indication of the serpent's affection for her. Maria Camilla, what did you say? Did you say ew?
Yeah, ew.
So you don't kiss snakes?
No.
Philip was at the same time annoyed. His wife is making out with a giant snake. Philip was at the same time annoyed and amazed. I should have had you, because you're always annoyed with me. You're never amazed by me, but you're always annoyed with me. I should have had you up here. Philip was at the same time annoyed and amazed, and could not take his eyes off the apparition. Suddenly the snake, as will happen, changed itself into an eagle and disappeared. You wonder why it changed into an eagle if it was just going to disappear. The snake changed itself into an eagle and disappeared. No one could say where. When Philip had recovered from his shock, he said,
Woman, I have seen a sign of the gods concerned for you, for he came to help you when you were in danger. But still, I do not know which god this is, for he appeared to me in the form of Ammon, and Apollo, and Asclepius. He made clear to me when he lay with me.
He made it clear to me when he lay with me that he is Ammon, the god of all Libya.
Sorry, somebody's making a phone call on speakerphone and it's distracting somehow to me. Where are we? Then Philip congratulated himself on the god's favor. The dude just congratulated himself. What an honor it is for... Yeah. Then Philip congratulated himself on the god's favor, since the offspring of his own wife was to be the seed of a god. When the time had come for Olympias to give birth, she sat down on the birth stool and went into labor. So you're not here anymore, Philip. There's no place for the father, right? Oh, actually, you are the father. All right, never mind. No place for the husband. When the time had come for Olympias to give birth, she sat down on the birth stool and went into labor. Nectanebo stood by her, measuring the courses of the heavenly bodies. He urged her, I've never given birth, all right, but I've watched, TV shows where people are, folks at the back table, stop talking. But I have watch TV shows where people are giving birth. And the exact opposite of what usually happens is what's about to happen. Nectanebo stood by her, measuring the courses of the heavenly bodies. He urged her not to hurry in giving birth. At the same time, he jumbled up the cosmic elements by the use of his magic powers, discovered what lay hidden in them, and said to her,
Woman, contain yourself and struggle against the pressure of nature. Get up from your chair and take a little walk. Scorpio is dominating the horoscope, and the bright sun, where he sees the beasts of heaven yoked together and going backwards, will turn one who is born at this hour altogether out of heaven. Take a grip of yourself, your majesty, and wait for this star as well. Cancer dominates the horoscope, and Saturn, who is the victim of a plot by his own children, and who cut off his genitals at the root and hurled them to Neptune, lord of the sea, and Pluto, the god of the dead, making way for the majesty of Jupiter. If you give birth now, your son will be a eunuch. Hold on a little longer. The horned moon in her bull-drawn chariot has left the zenith and come down to the earth to embrace the beautiful herdsman Endymion. Whoever is born now will die by fire. The next sign is not auspicious either. Bed-loving Venus, mother of archer Cupid, will kill the swineherd Adonis. Whoever is born in this hour will take the luster of woman of Babylos and raise a great commotion around himself. Next is the lion-like rage of Mars. He is a lover of horses in war, but was exhibited naked and unharmed by the sun on his adulterous bed, so whoever is born at this hour will be a laughingstock. Wait also for the passing of Mercury, your majesty, the goat-horned next till the ill-omened one, or you will give birth to a quarrelsome pedant. Your son will be a monster. Sit down now, your majesty, on the chair of benefaction, and make your labors more frequent and energetic. Jupiter, the lover of virgins, who was pregnant with Dionysus in his thigh, is now high in the clear heaven, turning into a horned Ammon between Aquarius and Pisces, and designating an Egyptian as the world ruler. Give birth now!
By the way, know who Jupiter is, right? That's another name for Zeus. You saved Zeus's life once, didn't you? Yeah. So describing Zeus as the way he's described, their lover of virgins, is not inaccurate. What a great midwife you are. As the child fell to the ground, there were great claps of thunder and flashes of lightning, so that all the world was shaken. The next morning, Philip saw Olympias' newborn child. He said,
I wished him not to be raised because he was not my own offspring. But now that I see that he is the seed of a god and the birth has been signaled by the heavens, let him be raised in memory of my son by my previous wife who died, and let him be called Alexander.
Eli, you got it now, who he is? The great one. I'm just gonna.
On camera?
Oh, I forgot it's 2024. Nobody can take a joke anymore. We don't think suicide's funny anymore. After Philip had said this, while I still have a job, please. After Philip had said this, every care was lavished on the child. There were celebratory processions throughout Macedonia and in Pella, capital of Macedonia, and also Thrace. In order to make the long story of the childhood of Alexander, in order to make the long story short, in order to make short the long story, in order to make short the long story of the childhood of Alexander, he was weaned and reached puberty. When he was grown up, his appearance in no way resembled Philip or Olympias or the one who had sired him, but was quite unique. In shape he was a man, but his hair was that of a lion, and his eyes were asymmetrical, the right one being downward slanting and the left one clear. His teeth were as sharp as nails, and his movements were as swift and violent as a lion's. And we will pick the story up from there tomorrow. That's all I need from you for today. Thank you to my readers. The rest of the time is yours.
Walk around a lot a bit, trying to make the pieces fit to a puzzle with a million missing pieces. When I'm feeling fine is when I discover that I'm afraid to blow my cover, and there's something very wrong with this. So sit back in your hole, or get back in your cave. If I'm going down, I'm taking someone with me.